In this video, we're going to talk about introducing you to S-Frame's interface. If you've opened S-Frame for the first time, you might see a screen that looks like this. There's a lot of different tools available. You may not need to use every single one of them, but we've tried to lay them out in an efficient fashion. We start on the left side of the window. You can see here that we have different types of windows: geometry, loads, graphical results, spreadsheet, and so on. Each one of these windows contains different tools that will perform tasks related to the window. For example, in the geometry window, we have tools to define and edit joints, members, supports, those sorts of things. We'll look at more of these different tools in later videos. At the top of the screen, we have the View Grids and Properties toolbar that allows you to access section properties, material properties, and so on the go. And below that, we have the data bar. And the data bar will update depending on whatever tool you're using to give you more flexibility with that specific tool. At the bottom of the screen, we have the status bar. And the status bar allows you to configure different toggles within your model. For the most part, the status bar will not affect the behavior of the model, but will help you add or remove information from the visual editor window where we see our model rendered. There are some applications like physical member modeling that we'll go into in more detail later on. So that's a quick tour of S-Frame's interface. It's also worth discovering S-Frame's selection paradigm as well, because it will help you work with the software. So in S-Frame, we have two different selection states. We have selected objects, which are solid blue lines in the case of members, and the nodes at each end are solid blue dots. And we have unselected objects. Unselected objects, in this case a column that we're looking at here, will have black and white dashed lines to represent the members, and circles, hollow circles at either end to represent the joints. And the difference between the two is that we can't interact with unselected objects. We can't apply properties, we can't delete them, we can't manipulate them in any way. Whereas selected objects we can manipulate. If we launch S-Frame now, here we can see the interface for S-Frame in 3D mode. I have a simple model that's already open for me. And we can look our way around the model. In terms of navigating the software, much like any other software that you've used, zooming can be done with scrolling the middle mouse wheel. So I can scroll the middle mouse wheel to zoom. I can hold down the middle mouse wheel and move my mouse to pan my model around the screen. And I can rotate my model by right-clicking my mouse and clicking and dragging. And this is going to rotate about the global coordinate system origin, which is this point right here. It just so happens the base of one of my columns lands on that spot. And you can see I have the start of my X, Y, and Z axis. And this will dictate the coordinates for every single joint in my model. So this point right here at the origin will be 0, 0, 0 for 0 in the X, Y, and Z. You may have noticed I've rotated off of my original orientation. I can use S-Frame's aerial window to locate different view options like top view, side views. I have the 3D isometric views. This is a default one. I can also left click and drag my mouse around this little window here, the pan, and use different zoom tools within this interface. So if I want to zoom in to a specific location, I can left click the zoom window and just left click and drag my mouse around whatever I want to zoom to. And I can zoom back to the extents of my visible structure. And if I want to select or unselect objects, I can use the selection tool at the top of every window in S-Frame. I also have a select all and unselect all icon, and a select menu that gives me more control. Now by default, everything is selected. If I want to unselect an object, I can always left click on it to unselect it. You can see it's turning black and white with the dashed line. I could also go unselect all right here. Now everything is unselected and I won't be able to interact with anything. If I want to select certain components of my model bit by bit, I can always left click on them or I can left click and drag my mouse. Clicking and dragging to the right will select all the objects that fall within this box. And clicking and dragging to the left will select all the objects that fall within or just intersect this box. And I can always press select all as well. The same paradigm works for unselecting as well. I can still use the selection tool, but I just need to use the shortcut button, the control button on my keyboard. And once I hold down control on my mouse or on my keyboard and left click and drag my mouse using the selection tool, anything that I click and drag my mouse around with the control button held down will be unselected. You notice now that I have a dashed red line around this box. And you can see it's unselected there. The same thing would go if I went to the left, except it's going to unselect anything that falls entirely within this box. And another shortcut key is we can use the shift button to do a line selection rather than a box selection. And using the combination of the control and shift keys at the same time and left clicking and dragging my mouse will unselect those objects along that line.